I'm Joseph Wolf, CEO of EFG Wealth Management Israel.
And I am Michal Dadoun, Head of Private Banking at EFG Wealth Management Israel.
And this is Market Makers IL, a financial podcast where we bring you conversations about shekels and stories about success in the Israeli market.
But let's be clear, this is not investment advice, and the conversations with our guests should not be taken as advice either.
We would love to welcome Michal Fisher to our podcast here, Market Makers IL. A little bit about Michal before we get into it. She's from my own current hometown of Ra'anana, and frankly, her emerging success has me feeling like a very old man. She was just named one of the markers 40 under 40 for 2025. Michal is a seasoned business development professional specializing in the life sciences and healthcare investment ecosystem. She developed business across all 9 LifeSci companies, working closely with investors and emerging companies. She has a track record of fostering relationships, driving deal flow, and building strategic relationships and partnerships that enhance value across biotech, medtech, digital health, and pharma. She has a strong pharma background, having worked at Neopharm and SK Pharma, and she's also engaged in shaping industry discussions, having participated in the large investor conferences like JP Morgan and other roundtables with key stakeholders. Full disclosure here before we get into this, I worked with your founding partner, Mike Rice, many years ago, coming back to that old man comment, in New York. And I also have my own firstborn employed by the same firm. I don't think this will impact our conversation at all. So here we go. Let's kick it off.
Hi, Michal. Why don't we start maybe with your background, just from a personal perspective and obviously on the professional aspect.
Sure. I think my drive towards the healthcare industry stems from the fact that I wanted to be a doctor. And that didn't happen, but I did Shirut Leumi, national service in both Hadassah Hospital in the bone marrow transplant unit and in Schneider Hospital. And in Schneider Hospital in the pediatric dialysis unit. And while I didn't go to medical school, I decided to pursue a biotechnology degree, and that's what I did for my first degree, and started working in business development in the pharma space. Leading into that, I was doing a lot of licensing and M&A transactions with global companies around the world, and I said, okay, I'm gonna think about doing either an MBA or there was this other degree that looked kind of interesting, which is just a law degree, but without being a lawyer. And I said, okay, that sounds cool. I'm dealing with contracts all day. Closing agreements with companies, I'll go down the law pathway.
That was all in Israel? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is all at Bar Ilan University.
Yeah.
And so, doing all of that enabled me to really get to know the pharma industry globally. And when I joined LifeSci almost 5 years ago, I was able to take that background, that kind of global understanding, and then pursue kind of the Israel ecosystem as well. So bringing, I think, the understanding of what pharma, on the one hand and investors on the other hand, globally want to see in a company that's developing itself is very important in trying to help Israeli companies do that globally. So my role at LifeSci is actually global BD. So I'm speaking with companies and with investors all across the world. Being here in Israel, and especially after October 7th, it's been very important for me at least, to even on a pro bono basis, just try to help companies grow and mature and develop and become global companies. And when I speak about global companies, and I'm going to tie this back to wanting to be a doctor, it's saying, okay, I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to help patients. I wanted to help cure patients. And here I am helping companies who are developing either drugs or medical devices or life-saving technologies. And I'm helping a lot of them. And hopefully, whether it's bringing them investments or helping them with some advice, but I'm actually helping a lot of patients worldwide have access to better Medicare. So I think that it's, for me at least, it's kind of fulfilling my passion in bringing medicine.
When you look at what you're doing day to day, a lot of times we think about what we're doing as bringing Switzerland or bringing global banking product to the Israeli market. And it sounds like you've got a very international flair. And sometimes, what's happening outside of Israel is different than what's happening inside Israel. You're working in an international firm. You've worked in many international, your experience seems much more international than local to a certain degree. But talk about how that works together in terms of what you're bringing here and what you're bringing out in terms of the ecosystem that you're working with.
So I think, definitely for firms coming from outside and wanting to help drive the ecosystem, whether it's through banking or it's, lawyers who come and who want to help companies grow, or other service providers or other investors or people who, just multinational companies who just plant, seeds on the ground over here and bring people and want to kind of connect with the ecosystem and help, either acquire companies or license from companies or even just invest in companies to help them grow. I think it's important to understand the landscape. It's always important to have people on the ground who have those relationships. As a small ecosystem where everybody knows everybody, having people on the ground who have those relationships, I think is quite key to driving success over here. So when you have people who can just pick up the phone, get on a WhatsApp group and just say, hey, or if you want a recommendation, if somebody's working with you and they like working with you, they're going to recommend you to all their friends. So, and it's just that just helps drive business, I think, for everybody. So I think that for everyone across the board, internationally wanting to come do something in Israel, I think it's important to have some sort of very personal connection with somebody in Israel who's going to help drive the business for them. And I think we see that in other places as well, but it's maybe more enhanced over here because it's just so small. I spoke a lot about the whole sense of brotherhood in the medtech industry, and it applies to other industries as well, where everybody here is wanting to help each other. And we see that globally as well, where, people do help each other, but it's probably much more enhanced over here where there's a sense of survival. We have to survive as a country, so we have to help each other. And people here are really incentivized to help each other, even if it's a competitor or, somebody who has other interests. I think people want to help each other because they see it as your success is my success. If you bring success to my industry, that'll be to my benefit as well.
Last couple of years have been pretty up and down in the healthcare sector. The stocks have not done well. Everybody keeps talking about a recovery. Globally, IPOs are down, but certainly in this sector. How's that impacting how LifeSci is working, thinking about development, exits for companies that you're working with at a very early stage? What are you seeing in the sector?
We actually hosted a VC roundtable this morning where we brought in people from Amoon, Our Crowd, Sanara, Deep Insight, More Investments, Arkin. So we all sat around the table and we had your good friend and my boss, Michael Rice, here talking about how he foresees the future for our space. And I think the feeling at the moment, with the political landscape where it is right now in the US, actually being positive. We've seen a few IPOs come out this year and another few companies who've announced that they're going to go public. And that's in the biotech space where in 2024 already, we kind of saw things heat up. And at LifeSci, we were involved both in taking companies public. We were involved in many secondary deals in the public markets. And PIPE seems to be, the things to do these days. So, and that's in the biotech market. We're really seeing things warming up. I'll contrast that with what's going on in Israel in the biotech space. And I'm just dividing for a moment between the biotech and the medical device space. But in biotech in Israel, we actually haven't seen too many success stories. And that's a real challenge for Israeli biotech companies who want to grow and develop because we don't have such a good name for ourselves here in Israel in the biotech space without those success stories. And that's why there's kind of a real incentive to create a success story in the biotech space. But that's in contrast to the medical device space where actually IPOs have been completely down since 2021. But we did see an IPO last week of a company that we actually invested in called Beta Bionics. So in the medtech space in Israel, we saw 4 M&As last year, and we think that is a momentum which is going to continue. and to grow. And we even hired somebody who ran Pura Vida, which is majorly successful hedge fund in the medtech space. But in Israel, we have some great medtech companies, and we have experienced management who have success stories in the medtech space, who are able to then go and help some of the emerging startups. So I think in the medtech space specifically, I think it'll be an exciting year to come with the whole Trump scene as well. Yeah. And, I think M&A is actually expected to grow. So I think that'll be nice.
Interesting. So clearly, just looking at Israel and the healthcare sector. So as, medtech is clearly one of Israel's strengths as a subsector. Is there any other subsector that is, one of the Israel strength? And maybe if there is any other that we think that we have some catching up to do?
Yeah. So I guess I'd categorize the subsectors in the healthcare space to be, biotechnology, which is more drug development, and maybe our key strengths over there, maybe less in the drug development of traditional drugs, but we have a few very cool emerging startups that have AI or machine learning tools to help drug development. So whether it's that actually finding new drugs using AI models, or actually improving clinical trials, making them more efficient, all those tools in the biotech space, I think we're actually going to be very helpful. The model there is a bit different. So it's not your traditional biotech company. It's more of a services role where you're either licensing your technology to other biotech companies, or you're just actually pay for service where, companies are paying for the use of your technology. But over there, with people who come from actually computer science backgrounds, which, I think high tech here is very robust. So, that combination of people from that background plus from the scientific background has enabled us to create actually a few companies that are more kind of AI drug discovery companies. And hopefully we can see those grow alongside with, we did speak about this morning, but I think that one of our main goals is actually to try to drive Aliyah, for people who do have drug development experience and who could come and take some of the amazing technologies from here and just develop them in a better sense.
Yeah, I was going to follow up on that. Do you think, given your educational background and where you started and what you focused on, and, just as someone who has followed some of the people who follow healthcare for a long time, biotech just sounds really hard. And it feels like the way that we're sneaking into biotech is with our natural skills in AI and compute. And I guess my question is, do you see something in the educational system or the tenacity of kind of the biotech needs that could allow Israel to succeed at the core, not just at the periphery?
That's a great question. I think if you speak with most investors, they'll say that the challenge really is with management. So inexperienced management. We really don't, since, it's a kind of vicious cycle where we don't have any successful companies. So we don't have we have very few people who can successfully take a drug and develop it. So while we have, incredible computer scientists and, people do come even maybe with a dual background or can, leverage their skills and kind of learn the bio side of things, using their computer background. And they're able to produce assets or molecules that could potentially, seem very interesting. But then we need that talent to take it to the next level, to take it through preclinical studies and to take it through clinical studies. And I think that that's where the gap really lies. And so and it's a change in mindset as well for companies where, in Israel, sometimes it's about cutting corners or, just trying to
fake it till you make it doesn't work in biotech.
or just doing everything so efficiently that it's too efficient. But if we were able to take that experience plus these great assets, which may be coming out, it might be an interesting combination.
I come from a hardware technology background. and we went through something similar to what you're describing, where kind of version 1.0 of Israeli tech companies needed significant management expertise and help. But version 2.0, you've got world-class CEOs and CFOs going all over the place right now across the technology spectrum. Is that where you think we are in the healthcare sector?
Absolutely. And seeing that you have that background, I think that having experienced people like you who've done this in the tech sector, who could help us in the healthcare sector do the same thing, I think would make such a difference. Just finding ways, I think we can think together about how to bring all these people together and do it, because there's really no reason not to. There's no reason that we shouldn't be as successful in biotech than we are in the tech space.
So talking about success, what is your definition of success?
I think it's an exit, whether it's going public or whether it's an M&A at a valuation which creates good value to shareholders. So, where the shareholders are pleased with that exit opportunity and are incentivized to continue investing in the space in Israel.
What do you think about this timing issue where Israelis are exiting too early? Instead of just keep growing the company and not exit, as early as they doing it all the time. This is a key topic we're hearing from a lot of entrepreneurs. And what's your view on that?
Well, I think that people with backgrounds such as yours, advising these companies and helping them understand why it might not make sense for them to exit now, and there's a way to make it work and to prolong this and run competitive processes, not take the first offer. You have an offer, go speak to all the others, create tension between investors and strategics. I think a lot of guidance could help companies understand. And I think that having, people with international backgrounds and, especially banking makes a lot of sense when trying to help these companies not sell too early.
I'm going to bring it back to the personal, I think, for a second. And we've talked about this with a couple of other people. First of all, you work in a specific office where there happen to be almost 100% women, if I'm not mistaken. That's a little inside baseball, as we say in the United States. But that's not true in most places. And so walk us through women in business from your perspective, 40 under 40, but how many of them were women? And how does all that fit into how you feel your career has developed in Israel?
So this may seem controversial, but I happen to be of the belief that there is just no difference in men and women. And anytime anybody tries to organize Women's Day or let's wear pink or all of that, I'm just like, no, just go ahead. Be as you are. You're exactly the same. Don't stop anything that you want to do because you're a woman. Like there's I think it's a change in mindset. If you do it, so you do it. And if your partner has to do the same for you because you'll do the same for them, we're just completely equal. And having that in mindset, I think is super important. But maybe another thing, which I actually spoke about with Yael was, I think...
Full disclosure, Yael is my daughter.
And she's the best and she's amazing. And it's just incredible working with her and everybody else at the office. But it's a lot of fun. In my role specifically, in kind of business development and in the financial landscape, it's mostly male dominated. And I think that something that I've taken to is just even in interactions, kind of when you go to a conference and you're like, okay, let's exchange numbers, right? And you still have people who are like, no, but I can't ask the guy for his number because he might think I'm hitting on him. No, he's not going to think you're hitting on him, right? Just take the number, give him your number, because if you don't treat yourself like a guy, so that's going to stop you. If you don't go out to drinks at night, you don't go to the 4th or 5th event at JP Morgan, that are, so you're going to be behind because that's where all the business happens. You're going to be out for a beer with everybody. You're going to be out for dinner. And even if you're sitting at dinner and there's 8 men and just you, in your mindset, you're the same. I think that's what's made the difference for me. But it's something that I think, people can either agree or disagree with, but I think there's no other way if you want to make it in the business world, or at least in our business world where it's mostly male dominated.
Right. Interesting. Since you started, how would you say that the field changed?
And specifically here more than or maybe globally too.
So I was really only international, I think, for the first eight years, I'd say, of my career. And then coming here, I think, when I kind of started to learn the Israeli ecosystem, it was during COVID. So it was kind of everybody's the same. And maybe what's changed is that I think there's a lot of bonding, a lot of bonding between companies, between investors. I think the whole WhatsApp scene is just boomed, right? I think everybody's on WhatsApp. It's now so you don't exchange business cards. You just exchange WhatsApp numbers. You get added to a group, and just access to information is just so easy. And I think that, that's something that's maybe less formal and more common in Israel. And so I think that's actually helpful. And I think it's going to help companies grow and develop. So maybe, if I look at what's been good, or what's changed in Israel, I think maybe it's that access, very quick to information, to connections, to people. I think that's growing and increasing. And you have organizations like 8400 and Startup Nation. And, maybe I'll tie this into October 7th and the war, but ever since October 7th, there have been a few initiatives that have come out. I was specifically involved in Iron Biz and in Chamal VC, which was organized by the VC community. And Iron Biz was just business development executives actually in the tech and healthcare space. But these initiatives were just set up to help companies. And so people were, just volunteering in their own time to help companies. And I think ever since October 7th, people are still taking time for pro bono work. Right. I was speaking with, a lawyer in one of the big global law firms, and he said, "Yep, I live here, so I spend until 2:00 every day is pro bono time, and after that is work." And and I think that companies are starved for capital, and so they can't always pay for services and for people's time. But people are engaging and doing that pro bono, and so maybe, hopefully, in the next few years, we'll see the fruits of that. We'll see that. We'll see that everything they learned has actually helped them grow and develop.
If you go back to the October 7th impact, some of the medical things we've heard and seen on TV, just in terms of implementation in the field, have been astonishing. And I'm wondering if what you're seeing there, if that's turning into company creation, and if that's in any way enhancing or changing the way you think about what's next for Israel?
Yeah, we did see a few companies whose technologies were used right on October 7th. Even our client MediWound, I think they ran out of stock on October 8th with their wound healing technologies. Another company called BioBeat that have a blood pressure monitor that can just be, kind of a sticker that you put on your chest, also being used in the battlefield. And I think the whole bio defense tech is just going to boom, right? Just taking technologies from defense and using them for medical applications, or vice versa. It seems like that's a field that's really going to boom because of this.
This is where Israel maybe have some good potential to develop business with other countries, which we have already heard and seen with defense technologies, but especially in this area as well, I guess.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
That'll be exciting.
2025, what are your expectations?
And in the context of where the sector's been going through.
I'd hope to see private financing increasing this year. So companies that have validated technology, and when I mean validated, I'm talking about either preclinical or clinical proof of concept. I'd hope to see them being financed by local investors and global investors and strategic companies. All these big medical device players, all these big pharma players, I don't think anybody's really held back on the licensing or M&A of good technologies. So I'd hope to see some significant private financings come in. We don't have very many late stage companies here, but for the earlier stage, I'd hope to see that grow. I think that would be amazing.
What do you think could help that?
I think continuing to bring people to see the technologies, continuing to drive those relationships with international investors, continuing to develop the relationships with all the strategic players, I think is just key for showing them like, hey, we're on the map. Okay, we've been through October 7th. What you're seeing in the news is just devastating and so far from the truth, and explaining that very calmly. And just saying, look, our company's business as usual. Companies are continuing to develop great technologies, and these are technologies that can be taken and you can monetize, and it'll be success for everybody.
Is there a scale problem here? Meaning, are the Israeli companies so much smaller than the huge international healthcare names that there's just sometimes we're under the radar too far? Yeah,
we don't have any. So all the big pharma have presence over here, but it's only for marketing and sales of their drugs. So that's in the pharma space. In the medical device space, we do have a few companies. I think, Edwards has a big R&D site over here. I think Medtronic have some R&D as well. So some of them do have R&D, and then they might have some other key positions over here. But really it's only Teva
only Teva. Teva is Teva, though. We can't forget that Teva is big.
I was going to say that when I started my career, it was like a walk of shame. What? You didn't work at Teva? Who are you? But now it's a bit different. I think that now it's different. Teva is in a different position than it was in, but Teva seems to be actually coming back. And they're we're in very close touch with their global BD, and they're very much still looking for great technologies, looking to grow, looking for innovation. So hopefully it'll be shameful again to not be part of that.
Well, we like to end on 4 rapid fire questions. You up for some quick answers?
Sure.
They don't have to be that fast. What is the worst career advice you've received?
Probably the worst career advice was, you're taking on too much, you're too busy, this is too much, you have little kids at home, just make your life easy for yourself. And I strongly disagree with that. I think some may disagree with me, but I think the more the merrier, and just doing a lot is just so awesome and so fun and can be successful. So why not?
Who's your personal business icon?
Okay, I think that without names, there are a few people I've met across my career who have multiple roles, who are doing a whole range of things. And I think that it's just very interesting to see how they can be so professional and so helpful to so many roles. I think that's very inspirational.
So you like span or breadth?
Yeah.
All right,
well, maybe I'll just say that I work at LifeSci, which is actually 7 businesses. So, and I'm doing BD for all of them. So it's kind of fun.
All right, this is an easier one. What is your go-to Israeli junk food or Israeli restaurant?
Junk food, I'd say chalva maybe. I try not to go
good
there.
One.
It's a good one.
Try not to go there. Or petitim. Did you know?
Yeah.
I'm considering that junk food because there's really nothing healthy in petitim, but petitim are petitim. I'm borderline vegan, so anything vegan is a good place to go. So I like Indian vegan, Asian vegan, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's all yummy.
Got it. And what is the last thing you changed your mind about?
This is personal. So I'd never actually taken my kids for a one-on-one. It's always been me with all the kids, with however many kids that is. And I actually took my daughter for her 17th birthday last week. We spontaneously flew to Georgia and spent 2 days skiing and came back, and it was amazing. It was always the thing of like, oh, I can't leave the other ones behind. They're going to be jealous, whatever. And we did it, and it was just so nice and special.
That's actually a great answer.
That's great.
Thank you. Michal, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michal.